Hello and welcome everyone. Just want to let you know how delighted we are to have you here with us for today's webinar on Keep the Peace with Conflict Coaching. Some of you that are attending today are people that are familiar with me and some of you are new. Just want to let you know that Ellen is going to be presenting today. She is the one who handles business development for the Center for Coaching Solutions. So we're very excited to hear her thoughts and wisdom on conflict coaching and excited about what the opportunities are for applying it in your own situation. Just to let you know, because of the number of people that are on our call today, we unfortunately have to keep everyone in mute mode just to manage the background noise and that kind of thing. We do want to take your questions. So several of you submitted questions when you registered, and we do have those and plan on responding to them. And as we go through the webinar today, please feel free to type questions in on the question panel. We will monitor that as we go, and that way make sure we're responding to what you want to know as far as the information and the content. So with that said, I'm going to turn you over to Ellen. And Ellen, just let them know who you are, and then please jump on in.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Hello and welcome, everyone. We're delighted to have you here, and we very much appreciate you making the choice of joining us because I'm sure you all have rich and full days today. I am a certified coach through the Center for Coaching Certification, and I'm now working with Kathy on business development for another venture, the Center for Coaching Solutions. With that said, here we go. Why isn't it? Here we go. Here's our agenda for the day. We're going to be talking about how to handle conflict, the reasons behind conflict, what happens when conflict occurs, what's the results from the conflict. We'll look at some facts worth knowing. We'll share some skills for managing conflict and how to manage conflict through coaching. We'll talk about some what-if scenarios. What if this, what if that? And then we will also look at the reasons why conflict coaching works and some of the resources available for conflict coaching. So the main question for many folks is, how do I handle conflict more effectively? And in order to handle it more effectively, you need to first understand what is behind the conflict. Really dig down to the bottom. What is the real problem? Otherwise, you're just fixing the symptom and not the real problem itself. So you need to also recognize differences in personalities. People take in information differently, they learn differently, they process differently, and they respond differently. Some folks have the answer right at their fingertips. Other folks need a minute or two to pull their thoughts together. Folks need to develop assertive communication skills. They also need to build listening skills, and we also need to learn the process. There's definitely a process to handle conflict more effectively through coaching. Some of the reasons behind conflict are misunderstanding, misperception, fear. Some folks are confused. They thought they were going one way and now it's a different, and they're confused. There is a difference of opinion, or there's a disengaged person on the team. So what happens? Depending on the person's method of dealing with conflict, each employee handles the conflict in one of four ways. Some folks just give in or withdraw. They just give up. They just disengage. Other folks try to sell or promote their ideas. They go on a campaign to win folks over to their side, to their point of view. Other folks have the answer. They know what the right step is. They know the way to go. nobody else's thoughts or ideas are relevant or need to be taken into consideration because they're right. And then the last one is folks withdraw, not because they're disengaged, but they need time to think about it, they need time to research and to analyze the situation. These are the folks who can't have enough data. There's never enough information for these folks. So these are the 4 responses to a conflict in the workplace. None of these approaches are successful. They only serve to make folks unmotivated and disengaged. So what are the results? Here are some statistics that are well worth paying attention to. 60 to 80% of all difficulties in organizations stem from strained relationships between employees, not from a lack of skill or motivation. The result is that folks, if they are unhappy, they will eventually leave for another position. Next statistic. Research shows that the typical manager spends 25 to 40% of his or her time dealing with the conflict instead of being able to actually do his or her job. So is that the best use of the manager's time? I don't think so. It's much better for the manager to just keep moving the ball forward on what needs to get done. But 25 to 40%, that is a large chunk of the day spent not focusing on what actually needs to get done. There's also the hidden costs of lower morale and motivation for the employees caused by conflict. That impacts productivity as well. And then the last statistic is that Fortune 500 senior executives spend 20% of their time in litigation activities, meeting with lawyers, negotiating, trying to mitigate risk. And again, is that the best use of time for a senior executive? Of course not. They should be developing the vision and the strategy for the future and communicating those to the organization. They should not be involved with lawsuits brought by unhappy employees. So this is worth knowing. When conflict is avoided, it does not go away. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean that it's not there. It simmers until it boils over or until employees leave the situation altogether for another job. It will also spill over into other areas, other departments, other relationships within the organization, could start spilling over into clients and customers and vendors because a toxic environment is now, everybody is now all involved in this toxic environment. Also worth knowing is that conflict can be discussed in a way that respects everyone, and this is vital. Everybody needs to feel heard and everybody needs to feel respected. And this is where coaching, either from an external or an internal coach, can help. Also, until each person is heard and understood, the conflict remains. Can't be just the 2 main players. Anybody who feels that they have been somehow impacted by the conflict have to be brought to the table so they can feel like they're part of the discussion as well as part of the solution. And here's the result. When each person is engaged and heard and understood, the follow-up increases exponentially.
And Ellen, there's a great statistic on that. I'd love to share it with everyone. When people go to court, on their way out the door of the courtroom, 60% of them are saying, I don't care what the judge says. I'm going to do it my way. When people go through an effective conflict management process, better than 90% of the time, they solve the problem and they follow through on the solution. So it really is amazing.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that statistic, Kathy, because it does show the impact of conflict resolution before you get to litigation. because litigation just means really nobody wins. They think they do because they've got some money, but the issue has not been resolved. They're not happy campers. So it's much better to get this resolved long before the courts and lawyers are concerned. You know, once lawyers are there, they're the only ones who win. And I want to, I advanced too quickly. I want to go back. Another reason why follow-up increases exponentially is because everybody takes ownership of both the situation and the solution. So everybody has some skin in the game. Everybody feels like they are part of the process. So here are some skills for managing conflict. The first one is to create a habit of clear, direct language. Clear, direct language decreases the chance for misunderstandings and confusion. Clear, direct language fosters an atmosphere of respect for everyone involved. Clear, direct language is not aggressive. It is assertive, and there is a big difference there. Coaches use assertive language, which is clear and direct, but also makes everyone feel heard and respected. Another skill is to ask short and simple questions that are open to possibility. Questions that end with a yes or a no answer, especially no, brings the conversation to a dead stop. When somebody says no, there's really no place else to go. So questions that are open-ended keep the conversation going and keeps moving the ball forward. So questions like, what are some options? How can we look at this differently? Is there anything we're overlooking? Have we left anything out? You know, questions like that will keep the conversation alive. The next skill is the ability to flex to individual preferences. You know, we all want to be treated the way we like to be treated, and it's crucial to know the 4 different work personality types and how to flex to the preferences to each of those types. For example, down in the lower right corner, we have the achiever. The achiever wants short, simple questions and answers, just the facts, no chit-chat, brief, you know, what are the bullet points, and that person is moving on. However, directly opposite, diagonally from the achiever, is the pleaser, and that is the person who wants the chit-chat up front, kind of warm up to the conversation, establish a connection, feel, you know, good about where, you know, the conversation and why we're talking, and, you know, we've said hello and we're friendly to each other. Coaches learn how to identify their clients' personal preferences and how to communicate so that the best connection and relationship is established, and there's the best opportunity for the message to be heard, received, and accepted. Another skill for managing conflict is listening actively and rephrasing. Listening does not mean waiting for your turn to respond. Listen means really paying attention and then rephrase and repeat back what you think you heard. An example of this is, I heard you say that you are frustrated with this part of the project and would like Ethel to take a more active role in making decisions. Is that correct? Is there anything else? Am I missing something? Because if you don't drill down to the bottom, you keep digging till somebody says, yes, that's exactly it, nothing else, but that's the whole picture, you've got the whole picture, then you can't develop the best solution because you're trying to respond to an incomplete situation. And you end up fixing the symptom instead of the actual issue itself. So conflict coaching. Here are the guidelines we use to resolve conflicts through coaching. The first one is everyone gets a chance to talk. Everybody's in the room at the same time when it's time to come up with the solution, and everybody gets a chance to talk. list all of the issues together on one big list. No list for Wilma and no list for Fred. It's all on one big list together. Everyone offers multiple solutions. And then everybody agrees on the action steps. They are listed, and there's a timeline established for completing the action steps. So here are some what-ifs. Emotions. This can be in a very emotional situation. So what if someone is angry? What if there's anger in the room? This is how you deal with people when they are angry. If you're in a one-on-one situation, you let them vent and then continue the process. And you rephrase what they said. I heard you say this, or you sound very frustrated, angry, freaked out. In some of these situations, they can use every bad word possible as they vent to you. What you want to do is neutralize the language when you are rephrasing. Instead of using all the bad language, you just say, you sound really angry and frustrated with this issue or with this person. So that you don't go to the bad language level, but you help them understand that you are paying attention and you've heard what they had to say. If the person is so angry that you can't have a productive conversation, they're just so stuck on being angry, you have to disconnect and give some space to that, but not a lot of space. If it's one-on-one, again, you want to stop and talk later, but no more than 15 minutes. If you say, we'll talk about this on Tuesday, then they know how to get off the hook from engaging with you. But if you say, I need a break, we'll come back and talk about this again in 15 minutes, they're not off the hook, but they know they have to get a grip on themselves. They have to calm down, but you can't tell them to calm down because that will just get them more angry. So when you are talking about taking a break, it's all about you. I need a break. I need to use the restroom. I need to get a glass of water. I just need a break. Let's take 15 minutes, and then we'll come back and re-engage with this.
And Ellen, I want to jump in on this because in advance of the webinar, a few people submitted questions, and I think this is a great place to respond to them. One of the questions that came in was referred to several cultures within the company, and they have issues with how people resolve conflicts because some are more fight-oriented than others. So let's give them some tips on dealing with the different cultures and when people are more fight-oriented. Did you want to jump in, or do you want me to jump in?
I would like to hear your perspective on this, Kathy.
Okay. So I think the tips you gave earlier on being aware of different personalities apply directly. Ultimately, yeah, we're all different personalities within one culture. It's also the awareness, whatever the culture is, if you know their personality and how they like to operate, you have a sense of how to adjust to them. I also liked the tips you gave on the clear, direct language because especially with those cultural differences, ensuring that the words we use really do make sense and have meaning for each person is incredibly important. You talked about rephrasing. Sometimes what happens is we say something and then we go, I wonder if the other person really understood me or not. And what we can do is say, if we say to them, gee, tell me what I said, they're going to be offended. That's like accusing them of not listening. Instead, own it. And so if I say, I'm not sure I said that the right way, help me out. Tell me what I said so I can be sure I got it the right way. And that way they're helping me be sure I'm clear and direct in my language, and I know whether or not they actually heard it and understood it. The tips you gave in terms of process are going to help when you have the different cultures, because when they all sit down together and we make that one list, so whoever The person is facilitating the conversation with the group, has one piece of paper and they write it down the middle of the page, or maybe they have a whiteboard and they're listing things there. It gets everybody working on that list together. And then engaging them in that brainstorming process, again, they start working on it together. If you back up even further with those cultural differences, you give them the tip on each person getting a chance to talk. Well, gosh, chances are whoever is talking, the rest of them really aren't listening. They're busy figuring out how they're going to answer that. So when the person who facilitates rephrases what they say, people hear that. Sometimes capturing key points of what is being said on the whiteboard is effective. And like you said, neutralize the language when you do that. So it's the concepts that you're presenting, and it's simply thinking about how to make it work with the different cultures that you have there in the room or at the table, if you will.
Excellent. Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then another question that came in was, how do you respond when you're put down or there's a nasty critique right in front of other people? So if somebody says really something mean and nasty to you when other people are there, how do you handle that? And so again, I'll say, do you want to grab that one, or do you want me jumping in on that? Your choice.
I'm going to let you jump in and see your thoughts, and then see if I have anything to add, Kathy.
Okay, okay. So I think the main thing is it's so tempting. When somebody says something mean or nasty, we want to come back with the mean or nasty. And when we do, we basically lower ourselves to their level. So instead, an effective thing to do is simply acknowledge what they said and then give the answer. Now, here's the key. And I learned this actually in a training that was incredibly valuable to me. Instead of repeating it, you want to say what it really is. So if somebody said to me, hey, Kathy, you are just so stupid, you messed this up, my response would be something along the line of, I'm hearing the frustration. Let's take a look at what really happened. Or here's what I know, and I may be missing some information. What else do you want me to know? And by very calmly handling whatever that nasty put down or critique is, acknowledging their frustration, and then stating it as, hey, here's what it is, I'm setting a tone, I'm being respectful of them and of myself, and I'm starting to change the dynamic.
Exactly. And it is the professional way to respond. And you're right, it's incredibly natural to, lash out and say, whoa, where did that come from? Or, that's so rude, or some kind of, but it's very important to keep your cool and acknowledge it and just go back to the facts. This is the situation. What am I missing? What else do I need to know? And what are we going to do from here? It's just all about results. And that's really what coaching is. It's getting to, what's the situation, where do we want to go, and how are we going to get there? What are the results that we want?
Excellent.
So, excellent. So now, what if there are 2 or more people in the room and people start getting angry? Then you call for a break, and it is, again, it's you need a break, I need a break, and send the folks back to their desks or to separate spaces so they have a chance to vent, get their cool pulled together again, and then reconvene. But again, say we're going to be back in 15 minutes, no more than 15 minutes. We're going to take I need a 10-minute break. Folks can scatter, go get a glass of water, whatever, come back here in 10 minutes and we'll start up again. Another emotion is that folks can get teary about this. If they get teary-eyed, that's okay. You can continue the process, hand them a Kleenex if they need it, if you've got it available, but just continue. If they have a complete breakdown, they're sobbing at your desk, again, I need to take a break. And they get to stay in that space. They don't have to go anywhere because now they're out walking back to their cube and folks see that they've been crying and what's wrong and, you don't want to get involved in that situation. So you can either leave your area altogether to get the drink of water or the restroom or whatever, or you just turn away and do work at your desk until the break time is up and the person has pulled themselves back together. Another tactic is folks will go silent on you. You ask them a question and they go silent. So you wait them out. This is requiring patience. People can avoid the situation by going silent, and they're hoping you talk first. And so we as coaches do the same thing, even if it's 20 minutes and there's no response. If they are avoiding a response, then for them it's the first person who talks loses. So we as the coach stay silent. The other thing to keep in mind is that if they are silent, perhaps they are pulling their thoughts together. So to jump in or try and get a response before they're ready to give one is disrespectful. So our silence for these folks is a sign of respect. Because if folks don't come up with their own answers, they won't buy into the process or the solution. Some folks go to denial. Wasn't me, wasn't my fault. Set that aside. Doesn't matter. There's nothing to be gained by engaging in that. So the response is, regardless of who did what, this is where we are, and what are we going to do about it? Now, if this involves a situation where the person did do it, and it is important that that person own up to his or her actions, then you have to be prepared with accurate information and evidence. No, I didn't do that. Well, I'm really sorry. I have an email where you absolutely, that you stated this. You let this information out. You directed this person to do this instead of that. And then just go, so that's where we are. That's what happened. What are we going to do about it? But the person needs to own up to their responsibility. Now, if it's a situation where it's he said, she said, you say one thing, he said another, then at that point, your role is to say, we agree to disagree, and we're going to focus on what we're going to do about it. And then there's the blame game, finger pointing. If it's a one-on-one situation and somebody says, well, Fred didn't do his part, the response is, well, since Fred isn't here, let's talk about what we are going to do. And it is less important to figure out who did what. It is more important to focus on how to handle the situation from here. And then the last situation that can come up is you reach an impasse. And that's when powerful questions are helpful. Effective questions are, given where we are right now, what do you want to do about it? What is your process for finding a resolution? What would your boss, team leader, other person do about this? Now, the reasons why conflict coaching works is that each person is heard and understood. Each person is part of the solution. They feel like they get to work on this instead of they have to work on this. So here are some resources for keeping the peace with conflict coaching. The Center for Coaching Solution, we provide one of our coaches to work with you, your team, and your organization on conflict resolution. And then there's the Center for Coaching Certification, where you, your manager, or your leaders can go through our coaching program and become an internal coaching resource for your organization. So resources for finding a coach is the Center for Coaching Solutions. This is our website. And also, this is the link where you can go to sign up for next month's webinar, How to Engage Employees with Ownership. It'll be talking about focus groups for awareness and coaching for strategy, implementation, adjustment, accountability, and results. We also offer a 30-minute free consultation so that you can decide what the next best step is for you. You can get some questions answered. You can get some more information. We are happy to do this with you. So if you're interested in hiring a coach, you want to talk with me. If you're interested in training coaches, you want to talk with Kathy. And here is our contact information. And again, we want to thank you so much for joining us today. Please let us know how we can help you with conflict resolution. We would love to hear from you.
Fabulous. And Ellen, there have been a few other questions.
Okay.
One of them, I'm going to read you the question, and I think you've done a great job of answering it all the way through the last 30 minutes. So the question was if somebody is a new manager, they want tips to help their staff work through the interpersonal conflicts. And really, I think your tips on the awareness of the different personalities, the clear, direct language, and then that conflict management process, the step of, one, making sure everyone gets a chance to talk so they're heard and understood, listing the issues with them as the second step, having everyone brainstorm how they're going to make it work, and then they figure out their action steps. And the power of that process is, again, they're heard, they're understood, and they own the answer. And that's the reason the conflict coaching works so well. So great question. I think you've done a fabulous job of answering it. Another question that came in a little bit on the unrelated side, at the same time it's pertinent. The question is, why is it important to become certified versus not being certified as a coach? And again, that's a great question. So
can I this one, Kathy, or do you want?
Oh, please, yes, jump in, because they're probably tired of me answering that one anyway.
Well, when I was going through coaching, this was definitely an issue discussed because there are folks out there who are not certified. And as I became more familiar with the profession of coaching, I became absolutely convinced that it is vital and crucial and critical to a successful outcome to work with a certified coach. Some folks think they know what coaching is, and they're really acting more as an advisor or a mentor or a consultant or even a therapist. Coaches are not therapists, but getting coached can be therapeutic. But, coaches are, as Kathy would say, the guide by the side. Coaches help clients figure out their own answers. They help them define their success and figure out their solutions and implement their strategies. Because if we just tell people, again, it goes back to everything we talked about in the conflict management in the last 30 minutes. It goes back to people owning their own information. So it's important to have a certified coach so that person has all of the tools and are equipped to get that person to identify their own information, their needs, their wants, their goals, and figure out how they're going to get there. Because otherwise it's just somebody giving advice and folks will say, oh, that's a good idea, and then not follow through on it because it didn't come from within. Is that helpful?
Excellent, excellent. Yeah,
okay.
So the coach training is really building the skill set for doing the coaching work, the awareness of how coaching is so very different from other roles, and then building the skill set. And I think the piece I would add to that is think about any professional. They all have training. If somebody's going to be a financial planner, they get training. If somebody's going to be a doctor, they get training. Someone's going to be a teacher, they get training. Whatever their profession is, there is training for that profession. So of course it makes sense that you want training for coaching. It's unique, it's different from all other roles, and having the training that goes with the work makes sense. So, excellent. I believe we have answered all of the questions that came through. We are getting some excellent feedback. You've got people sharing in the panel, typing in the question panel saying, great and very helpful. Thank you for the information. etc. So thank you all to all of you for being here. We definitely appreciate your time and your interest. We do want to be helpful. You've got our contact information. Let us know how we can be helpful. If anyone has a question that I happen to miss, because sometimes things scroll by very quickly in the question panel, if I miss something, please feel free to type it in again. We'd love to answer it for you. We do realize we've got a few minutes over. Those of you that have things scheduled and are jumping back into your day, thank you again. I will send you a link if you'd like to see the recording again. Those of you that want to hang around, please let me know what other questions we can answer. So thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Excellent. And Ellen, just to let you know, we're getting more thanks and more comments, and I think we have covered it on questions. I'm going to go ahead and close out our recording and stop our webinar. So thank you very much. Fabulous presentation.
Great. Thanks so much.